We're about to make an awesome camp meal in our Adventure Kings Baduri camp oven. It's a one-pot meal and it is beef stew. So we're going to start off by browning a pound of stew beef. We're going to be adding a couple jars of turkey broth here. We're going to add carrots, and then I've got this whole bag. We've got seasonings. I've got a bunch of dehydrated vegetables. We've got carrots, mushrooms, tomatoes, onions. It looks like we got some peppers and probably some moringa and all kinds of good stuff in there. Got some garlic, and then of course over here we are cutting up some fresh squash. So it's a lot of ingredients is all going to go into this pot. So we're going to start out, put a little olive oil in there and brown this stew beef. Hold tight. Right, we've got the camp oven heating up. We're going to get it going about medium heat. I'm going to add some olive oil here. That should be good. Some olive oil in there. And then, once that heats up, we're going to drop in the stew beef and start browning that. Now, a lot of recipes of beef stew call for browning that and putting some flour on it and kind of making kind of a crispy edge on it, but we actually have some flour and some seasonings in our packet that we're putting in afterwards. It's the same recipe we use in a crock pot, but we're going to do it as a one-pot camp meal. So we'll let this heat up a little bit and we'll add some stew beef. Right, so the olive oil's getting hot, so we're going to add the stew beef in. And what we're going to do with this is we're just going to brown it. We're going to brown the outside of it, get a little crisp edge on it, and not cook it all the way through. Once we get this browned up, we're going to add the rest of the ingredients, and we're going to cook it for about an hour. So we're just going to brown that meat for now, medium heat. Like I said, get the edges browned on it, and then we'll start adding stuff. All right, and while these are getting browned in some olive oil, I'm going to add in a couple cloves of fresh garlic. Get that sauteed in there nicely. You know what? While I've got the garlic and the beef browning in there, I am going to add some fresh sweet potatoes and squash to it. Dump that right in off the cutting board. There we go. I'm going to saute that up. Give that a couple minutes. Then add the broth and the rest of the ingredients. Oh my gosh, it smells so good with the beef and the garlic and everything else. Gosh, everything's looking and smelling really good. So next up, I'm going to add 2 cans of turkey broth. And when I add the broth, I'm also going to add the carrots. Now, I could have put the carrots in a little bit earlier and softened them up a little bit, but this way they don't get as much of a saute as the sweet potatoes and the squash. They stay a little bit firmer, a little bit crisper. So we're going to go ahead and 1. 2. Alright, so I got 2 jars of broth in there. And get a baggie of carrots. And then next up, I'm going to add all of my dehydrated ingredients. Okay, while that broth is heating up, I'm going to add my bag of dehydrated goods. I've got some celery, tomatoes, mushrooms, onions, potatoes, all kinds of good stuff in here, and that's going to soak up most of the broth, so I'll probably end up adding some water also. So we'll get that in, we'll see how the water looks, and we'll go from there. So don't be shy with this. Dump it right in there. Give it a quick stir, and then as it starts to simmer, like I said, it's going to soak up a lot of this broth because it's all dehydrated. Okay, and then I've got a bag of seasonings going. All right, now I'm going to dump in a bucket of dried seasonings. We've got some flour, some rosemary, some garlic, some onion, some dehydrated tomato. We've got, what else we got in there? All kinds of stuff. But a bunch of spices and herbs from the garden. So we'll dump that in. And this is also dry, so but the dehydrated tomato powder is absolutely awesome. It makes the broth taste amazing. Dump that guy in there. I'm going to give it a stir. And that's dry also, so it's going to soak up even more of the broth. So I'm going to kind of bring this to a simmer. We're going to see how much liquid it absorbs. And then we're going to probably add a little bit of water once these dehydrated vegetables start clumping up. So give that about 10 minutes. We'll go from there. I cannot tell you how amazing this is starting to smell. So as the heat's coming up, I noticed that a lot of my dehydrated vegetables are out of the broth already. 2 cans of broth sometimes isn't enough, so I'm going to add about a half a bottle of water. Maybe add the rest of the bottle of water, who knows? So we're going to let that go a little bit more. We also added a little bit of basil from the garden. This is going to be absolutely amazing, guys. So we're going to make sure all these dehydrated potatoes, onions, everything get down into the broth as it starts to simmer. We'll give that 10 minutes or so, bring it up to a good simmer, and then we'll check to see if it needs some more water. Okay, so we're simmering here, and I thought about adding that second half of the bottle of water. As you can see, the potatoes are starting to get pliable. Everything's starting to plump up a little bit, but I don't want it to be too soupy. So a lot of this broth is going to be taken up by the vegetables, which is going to be great. So what we're going to do is I'm going to throw the lid on, and I'm going to simmer this for an hour. And I can tell you right now, it smells absolutely amazing. One little side note, you don't want to boil this for an hour. I actually turn the propane down as low as it can go for a nice low simmer. So we've got the lid on the Adventure Kings Viduri camp oven, and we're going to run it for an hour. We should have plenty of propane. I'm going to sit back, enjoy my cold beer, and just enjoy the smell of this. Luckily for us, we've got the awning up, got the rain fly on. Beautiful out here, but it's starting to rain. So, hey, at least we're going to have a beautiful, wonderful, tasty, warm meal here in about an hour. Okay, we're about 40 minutes into it. I'm going to take the lid off. And I'm actually going to leave it off now. I'm going to stir it up a little bit. I'm going to leave it off because we want it to thicken up. It is a stew. So, oh man, that smells really good. So we're going to leave the lid off, let it cook down a little bit. All right, so we are all done, simmered to perfection. The vegetables are nice and tender. Broth is cooked down. A little camp mug here to serve it up. So everybody gets a nice, generous portion of our one-pot meal beef stew. And this should help us through the night. We got a little thunder and lightning and rain going on, but at least we'll have a nice warm meal in our belly. So there it is. That's the one-pot beef stew camp recipe. Hope you enjoyed it. Happy trails.